Have you ever felt that the kinder you are, the less respect people have for you? That the more you try to please, the more others ignore you, test you, or use you? Maybe you can't put it into words, but you feel it in your body. In the tension of swallowing a retort you wanted to unleash, in the sinking feeling that your voice is not just unheard, but actively disregarded, in the simmering frustration of witnessing manipulative, cold, and even cruel individuals lauded while you, who simply sought harmony, are perpetually walked over. But what if I told you that this isn't a bizarre anomaly, but a pattern with an underlying logic? A stark, uncomfortable, yet undeniably true logic. Machiavelli, centuries ago, famously argued that it is better to be feared than loved when you cannot be both. While that may sound harsh, even callous, the reality is that the world often responds more readily to perceived strength than to inherent goodness. Not because humanity is inherently malevolent, but because the human psyche instinctively respects boundaries, not mere promises. It admires self-assuredness, not subservience. And we're not advocating for becoming a tyrant, a master manipulator, or a textbook narcissist. This is about something far more profound, understanding that being purely good in and of itself is often insufficient. Kindness without the capacity to command respect is akin to bleeding in shark-infested waters. Sooner or later, you'll attract unwanted attention. Perhaps you find yourself at that very point right now, weary of being overlooked, of constantly giving far more than you receive, of feeling perpetually relegated to the sidelines. Perhaps you're wrestling with the questions: how can I cultivate respect without morphing into someone I despise? How can I project strength without sacrificing my authentic self? If so, this is for you. Here we'll dismantle the naive assumption that kindness alone is enough. We will delve into psychological insights regarding fear, respect, and authority. And by drawing upon the wisdom of Machiavelli, we'll explore how to transform your presence into one that others dare not disregard. Because in the unforgiving landscape of the real world, those who fail to establish boundaries often find themselves pushed to the periphery. If you're willing to confront uncomfortable truths and finally understand why you are being treated in this manner, keep watching. What follows may fundamentally alter your self-perception and interactions. People do not inherently respect kindness. They respect what it signifies when coupled with strength of character. The fatal flaw lies in the assumption that being virtuous is a sufficient shield, as if treating others well, radiating kindness, avoiding conflict at all costs, and selflessly sacrificing for others would automatically guarantee your inherent value. However, the human brain doesn't operate on such simplistic terms. Respect isn't born from noble intentions. It stems from the perception of credible authority. And that authority, my friend, is forged with confident posture, with unwavering firmness, and yes, with a discernible degree of healthy fear. Psychology has consistently demonstrated that human beings instinctively react to fear with heightened attention. When an individual sets clear and unwavering boundaries, speaks with unwavering conviction, and doesn't hesitate to disengage from abusive or exploitative situations, the message transmitted is unambiguous. Not on my watch. The other person's subconscious registers this as a formidable barrier, a territory ringed with an electric fence, a landscape one doesn't traverse without extreme caution. Now consider the antithesis. Individuals who habitually say yes when their inner voice screams no. who over-explain themselves, seeking validation for their very existence, who plaster on a smile to quell any potential conflict, who choose silence to maintain a fragile peace. In the eyes of an objective observer, this person doesn't inspire confidence or security. They exude an air of permissiveness, and where excessive permissiveness reigns, exploitation invariably follows. Fear and respect are intertwined by an unseen yet potent cord. And this isn't about resorting to threats, screaming matches, or outright aggression. That's merely weakness masquerading as strength. True psychological fortitude resides in unwavering self-control, in resolute silence when necessary, in a gaze that doesn't require justification for its existence, in the simple yet powerful act of delivering a firm no without a tremor of hesitation. Machiavelli wasn't advocating for rulers to inflict cruelty for mere sadistic pleasure. He was issuing a stark warning about an immutable aspect of human nature. People tend to quickly forget acts of kindness, but they rarely forget the individual who makes them pause and reconsider before crossing the line. This principle applies to political leaders on a grand scale, yes, but it also applies microcosmically to your own life. In your professional interactions, in your cherished friendships, in your intimate relationships. Those who fail to grasp this fundamental dynamic spend their lives desperately seeking validation, but they will perpetually struggle to be taken seriously. And perhaps a nagging question is now echoing in your mind. Does this mean that being good is inherently flawed? Absolutely not. But a critical dilemma exists, and that's precisely what we'll explore next. We'll delve into one of the most profound internal struggles individuals face, the paradox of kindness. We'll examine how to discern when your inherent goodness has morphed into detrimental weakness, and what concrete steps to take when you realize you are being exploited precisely because of your attempts to be fair and accommodating. Prepare yourself to face the mirror head-on. The truth may sting, but it also holds the key to your liberation. If this resonates with you, subscribe and support the channel. Perhaps no one ever bothered to explicitly teach you this crucial lesson. Perhaps you were raised on the unwavering belief that being a fundamentally good person was all that mattered, that treating others with unwavering empathy, lending a helping hand whenever possible, consistently prioritizing the needs of others above your own, would inevitably result in the universe reciprocating in kind. But the stark reality often paints a different picture. In the harsh crucible of the real world, kindness devoid of discernment transforms into irresistible bait. And opportunistic predators, yes, they unequivocally exist, can detect this vulnerability with the same preternatural accuracy that a seasoned tracker can detect the faintest whiff of fear. This is a brutal, unspoken, and often excruciatingly painful dilemma. The more diligently you strive to be inherently good, the more susceptible you become to manipulation and abuse. And this inherent vulnerability gnaws away at your self-worth, prompting you to question, is the problem inherently me? Am I simply being too accommodating, too nice? But if I consciously alter my behavior, if I cease being so readily agreeable, am I betraying the very essence of who I am? It is at this critical juncture that countless individuals become trapped, paralyzed by the mistaken belief that consciously hardening oneself is tantamount to corrupting one's inherent goodness. But here's the unvarnished truth that no one seemingly bothered to share. There is no authentic kindness that isn't fortified by inherent strength. a kindness that lacks the capacity to self-protect, that neglects to establish clear boundaries, that fails to recognize when it's being deliberately exploited, isn't a virtue to be lauded. It's a perilous naivete. It's a self-imposed psychological trap, meticulously designed to keep well-intentioned individuals perpetually confined to roles of emotional servitude. And this insidious trap bears a specific name: validation dependency. You gradually become accustomed to assuming the role of the agreeable one, the perpetually accommodating one, the ever-willing listener, the endlessly understanding one, the one who forgives even when the recipient is demonstrably undeserving of such grace. You erroneously conflate being genuinely peaceful with being passively compliant, and imperceptibly, you become ensnared in profoundly unbalanced relationships where the scales are perpetually tipped in one direction. Only you consistently give. Only you selflessly donate emotional energy. Only you genuinely care about the well-being of the other party. Psychology accurately labels this insidious pattern as self-abandonment. You emotionally abandon your own needs and desires in order to meticulously maintain the fabricated image of someone perceived as intrinsically good, perpetually pleasant, and universally loved. But the long-term cost of this charade is devastatingly high. You not only forfeit the genuine respect of others, but far more tragically, you erode your own self-respect from the inside out. You must internalize this immutable truth. Being good is not synonymous with being inherently weak, but being good without the tempering influence of wisdom is the surest and quickest path to enduring profound pain. And Machiavelli possessed an intuitive understanding of this fundamental dynamic. He didn't advocate for you to transform into a heartless monster. He sought to illuminate the often uncomfortable realities of human nature. And human nature, in its raw and unfiltered form, instinctively respects those who possess the demonstrable capacity to defend their boundaries. The lingering question that now demands an answer is, how does one practically accomplish this crucial rebalancing act without crossing the proverbial line? How does one inspire genuine respect, even a healthy dose of fear, without succumbing to the corrosive allure of hatred or morphing into the very thing you despise most vehemently? This is precisely what we will dissect in the upcoming segment. We'll examine the life and experiences of Niccolo Machiavelli and explore why he may be the unlikely mentor you need to effectively learn how to protect yourself without sacrificing your authentic self. Niccolo Machiavelli was an unyielding and astute observer of the intricate tapestry of human nature, a man who navigated a treacherous landscape of political betrayals, devastating civil wars, relentlessly corrupt courts, and perfidious allies. He witnessed firsthand what most people perpetually choose to deny. The true power doesn't reside in the hands of the morally righteous, but rather in the hands of those who possess unclouded clarity of vision. And it was from this bracing clarity that The Prince, his most enduring and controversial work, was conceived. Hated and reviled by some, revered and emulated by others, but consistently ignored only by those who court inevitable disaster. Machiavelli wasn't a malevolent monster, as many have erroneously portrayed him. He was, in essence, a radical realist unafraid to confront uncomfortable truths. While his contemporaries penned idealistic treatises on how rulers should behave, Machiavelli meticulously documented how they actually behave in practice. He astutely understood that in a world primarily governed by self-interests, Naive idealism is nothing more than a thinly veiled invitation to utter failure. Those who aspire to govern, whether an entire nation or simply their own life, must first grasp the intricate rules of the game being played beneath the surface. When Machiavelli famously argues that it is far safer to be feared than loved, he isn't advocating for gratuitous cruelty or the capricious exercise of power. He's highlighting the inherent instability, the conditional nature, the fundamental fragility of human affection. People tend to shower you with affection when you demonstrably benefit them, when you conveniently satisfy their immediate needs and self-interests. But that fleeting affection evaporates at the first hint of conflict, at the first audacious "no" you dare to utter. Fear, on the other hand, when wielded with judiciousness and wisdom, inherently establishes inviolable boundaries. It creates a palpable margin of respect, an invisible yet powerfully protective barrier that effectively deters abuse, manipulation, and outright disloyalty. Machiavelli envisioned fear not as a weapon of gratuitous destruction, but as an essential wall of protection. The leader or the individual who fails to inspire any measure of fear will inevitably be betrayed sooner or later. Because without the tempering presence of fear, there is no inherent caution, and without caution, human beings readily reveal their basest and most self-serving instincts. He also issued a critical warning regarding the imperative of balance. Fear must be carefully measured and calibrated, because a ruler who is solely feared but universally hated cultivates fertile ground for simmering resentments and eventual revolts. True and enduring power resides in being genuinely respected, and respect is painstakingly built upon a precise combination of unwavering firmness, strategic acumen, and unwavering self-control. Machiavelli advocated for surgical coldness when necessary, not for unchecked and indiscriminate brutality. A leader who is perpetually swayed by uncontrolled hatred inevitably loses control of both themselves and the situation. A leader who wisely commands through the measured application of fear keeps everyone acutely alert, and no one dares to underestimate their resolve. Now pause for a moment and thoughtfully consider, how does this translate into the context of your own life? Are you actively governing your own existence with intention, or are you passively allowing others to dictate the prevailing rules? Have you consistently been the one proactively setting boundaries, or the one who is perpetually tested until your carefully cultivated patience finally snaps? The answer, in large part, resides in the manner in which you proactively assert yourself. And this is what we will delve into next. How to cultivate being feared without simultaneously inciting hatred. How to build such a solid foundation of personal authority that others will instinctively pause and reconsider before even contemplating disrespecting you. Not because you resort to shouting or empty threats, but because your very presence inherently commands respectful silence. In the next segment, we'll dissect the true and often misunderstood art of cultivating genuine authority. This is where profound and lasting transformation truly begins to take root. Stay tuned. There is a vast and often misunderstood difference between being genuinely feared and being universally hated. And if you fail to grasp how to navigate this delicate and nuanced line, you risk teetering into one of two destructive extremes that will inevitably sabotage any meaningful power dynamic: crippling passivity that actively invites abuse, or tyrannical oppression that inevitably breeds resentment and ultimately ignites revolt. True and sustainable authority resides in finding the elusive balance. And believe me when I say that this is indeed an art that surprisingly few individuals genuinely master. Being feared does not equate to being inherently aggressive. It doesn't necessitate resorting to violence, engaging in perpetual shouting matches, deliberately humiliating others, or seeking to control through the constant installation of fear. That isn't genuine respect. That's merely abject terror. And terror, by its very nature, always carries an expiration date. Sooner or later, it inevitably turns against those who initially imposed it. Machiavelli fully comprehended this inherent truth. He painstakingly wrote that a wise ruler must assiduously avoid being hated at all costs, because hatred is an insidious and silent poison that relentlessly corrodes from within. People may be capable of enduring a significant degree of fear, but they cannot tolerate prolonged humiliation for extended periods of time. So, the key to unlocking this delicate balance lies here. You need to be consistently respected to the degree that others will instinctively pause and reconsider before even contemplating crossing the boundaries you have unequivocally established. But you simultaneously need to be sufficiently fair and just that they don't harbor a simmering desire to undermine or actively sabotage you behind your back. How does this nuanced principle translate into your daily life? It means acting with unwavering clarity, projecting confident posture, and consistently demonstrating unwavering coherence between your words and your actions. You need to subtly convey to others, without feeling the need to excessively explain or justify yourself, that there will be demonstrable consequences for acts of disrespect, that your words carry inherent weight and are not to be taken lightly, that your absence will be acutely felt, that your presence is a privilege, not something to be taken for granted. This level of authority isn't painstakingly built overnight through sheer force of will. It begins with a series of incremental and seemingly insignificant gestures, uttering a firm and unwavering "no" when appropriate, gracefully disengaging from draining or toxic conversations without feeling compelled to offer extensive justifications for your departure, refraining from endlessly repeating explanations to those who have already understood but are deliberately testing your limits to gauge your breaking point. It's about proactively claiming your own emotional space and making it unequivocally clear through consistent actions that you will no longer be molded or shaped by the whims and capricious desires of others. Psychology consistently validates this approach. Individuals who exude an aura of silent authority without resorting to overt confrontation or unnecessary displays of aggression tend to command far more genuine respect over the long term. This is the essence of so-called latent power, the subtle but palpable force that remains consistently present even when it isn't actively being exerted. It's the type of power that compels others to pause and carefully consider their actions, not because you directly intimidate them, but because they inherently recognize that you possess a profoundly low tolerance for any form of disrespect or exploitation. And that inherent intolerance is the key to being feared without simultaneously inciting hatred, demonstrating that you are fundamentally in control, not of others, but of your own thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Those who master their own internal landscape, who navigate their emotions with unwavering serenity and firmly uphold their personal boundaries, will consistently command far more respect than any fleeting shout of anger or empty threat ever could. But what if that still isn't enough? What if, despite your sincere efforts to proactively assert yourself, you continue to feel that you are being consistently tested, unfairly used, or habitually ignored? This is where we venture into the most sensitive and often neglected territory of all, the internal psychological space where insidious patterns of submission, deeply ingrained fears of confrontation, and fundamental difficulties in establishing healthy boundaries are allowed to fester. In the upcoming segment, we'll delve even deeper into this crucial inner dimension. We'll explore how your deeply held beliefs, your subconscious mind, and your past emotional history may be inadvertently preventing you from commanding genuine respect, and more importantly, how to break free from this self-sabotaging cycle and begin consciously constructing a new identity, one that is demonstrably stronger, unequivocally clearer, and virtually unshakable. If what you are hearing is resonating with you on a profound level, you'll find genuine value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. Link is in the pinned comment. Now that you possess a foundational understanding of the critical importance of commanding respect, projecting unwavering firmness, and inspiring an appropriate degree of healthy fear, it's time to embark on a crucial journey of introspection, because intellectual comprehension alone is woefully insufficient. If deep down you still harbor lingering fears of inconveniencing others, disappointing their expectations, or risking potential rejection by assertively defending your boundaries, then the core root of the problem lies squarely within you, and it's within that inner realm that true and lasting transformation must necessarily reside. Many individuals have carried since childhood the deeply ingrained conditioning to perpetually please others as a fundamental survival strategy. These are often individuals who were subtly taught, even if unintentionally, that their value and worthiness of love were contingent upon consistently being nice, who internalized the belief that uttering the word no was inherently synonymous with selfishness, that expressing disagreement was inherently impolite, and that contradicting an established authority figure was a sure path to emotional punishment. And the inevitable result of this insidious conditioning, adults who habitually bend over backwards to accommodate others, who silence their own inner voice in order to maintain a fragile and ultimately unsustainable peace, who consistently accept far less than they inherently deserve because they mistakenly believe that setting healthy boundaries is a surefire way to lose affection and connection. This insidious conditioning acts as an insidious psychological poison, an unconscious script that subtly transforms you into an unwitting emotional slave. And the most insidious aspect of this self-perpetuating dynamic, the more consistently you reinforce this deeply ingrained pattern, the more deeply entrenched it becomes in your subconscious programming. With every single yes you utter, when your authentic inner voice is screaming a resounding no, you subconsciously transmit to the world the unmistakable message that your own will and desires are inherently inconsequential. Each time you actively avoid even the slightest hint of conflict, you inadvertently allow injustice and exploitation to flourish unchecked. With every individual you unconditionally forgive, without the other party demonstrably feeling any genuine remorse or taking responsibility for their actions, you inadvertently validate and perpetuate the cycle of abuse. What fundamentally needs to be understood and internalized is that genuine respect invariably originates from within you. There can be no authentic external authority without a corresponding degree of internal firmness and self-assuredness. You will never effectively inspire respect in others if you fundamentally lack respect for yourself. You will never be able to effectively establish and maintain healthy boundaries if you don't genuinely believe that you deserve to be protected and valued. And no one will ever take you seriously if you are consistently plagued by debilitating self-doubt and perpetually question your own inherent worth. The painstaking construction of this new and empowered identity necessarily begins with a series of conscious and deliberate decisions, proactively starting to observe the specific instances in which you consciously silence yourself out of irrational fear, diligently identifying the specific situations in which you habitually diminish yourself in order to passively fit in with a particular group, pinpointing the specific individuals with whom you feel compelled to assume a persona that is inauthentic to your true self. One by one, these deeply ingrained patterns of behavior need to be systematically dismantled with unwavering intention, not with uncontrolled anger or resentment, but with strategic foresight, mindful presence, and unwavering adherence to your own personal truth. You will inevitably observe that as you incrementally begin to assert yourself with greater conviction, some individuals will inevitably be bothered by this shift in dynamic. They may impulsively label you as rude, overly cold, or even arrogantly self-centered. But this knee-jerk reaction is ultimately not about you. It's about their inability to effectively control or manipulate you any longer. Every single shift in your posture and demeanor will inevitably destabilize those who have previously benefited from your inherent passivity and willingness to accommodate their every whim. And yes, you will almost certainly lose certain individuals along the way. But believe me when I say that it is profoundly liberating to shed the weight of those who only knew how to exploit your kindness for their own personal gain. When you realign yourself with your own internal truth, the external world will inevitably respond in kind. People who previously ignored you will suddenly start to listen with rapt attention. Relationships that once drained you of your energy will either gracefully dissolve or undergo a transformative process of renewal. You will gradually cease begging for affection and validation and begin effortlessly attracting genuine respect because you are now no longer overwhelmingly accessible or readily manipulated. And what is no longer easily attainable inherently possesses greater perceived value in the eyes of others. But even with all of this proactive effort, there is still a critical missing piece of the puzzle, something that effectively ties together everything we've meticulously discussed thus far. You have comprehensively grasped the underlying psychology, the foundational philosophy, and the observable behavioral patterns. But you still need to definitively answer the final and most crucial question: how to effectively balance this newfound strength and self-assuredness without inadvertently becoming the very thing you vehemently detest. How to consistently maintain lucidity, demonstrate genuine respect for others, and uphold your unwavering integrity, even while simultaneously commanding authority with unwavering firmness. That is precisely what we will explore now. There inevitably comes a pivotal moment when you must make a definitive and unwavering decision. Either you continue to desperately strive to please everyone in the world, naively hoping that they will eventually recognize your inherent worthiness of love and respect. Or you consciously and proactively cease begging for fleeting crumbs of emotional validation and begin behaving consistently like someone who inherently deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. Because the stark and often uncomfortable truth is fundamentally simple. No one will ever freely give you what you are unwilling to proactively demand for yourself. You don't need to transform into a cold and heartless individual. You don't need to devolve into a petty tyrant or authoritarian figure. But you do urgently need to learn how to proactively stand up for yourself, to raise your emotional boundaries like inviolable, invisible walls, to confidently look into the eyes of those who attempt to manipulate you, and maintain the unwavering silence that unequivocally conveys, "Not with me, not anymore." That is the essence of true strength, the kind that doesn't need to loudly shout or ostentatiously show off, but that is implicitly felt in the very air surrounding you, in your confident posture, and in the unwavering intensity of your gaze. And this intrinsic strength begins the moment you consciously cease striving to be universally loved and resolutely start demanding to be consistently respected. Machiavelli keenly understood this timeless principle centuries ago. He astutely observed that people's affection is inherently fickle, perpetually conditional, and invariably fraught with ulterior motives and hidden self-interests. But respect, when painstakingly built upon a solid foundation of integrity, endures the test of time. It sustains itself in the face of adversity. It proactively protects you from harm, and that is ultimately what you need to actively seek. Not the fleeting and often illusory acceptance of others, but your own inherent inner sovereignty and self-possession. From the very moment you fundamentally understand that being inherently good is simply not enough to guarantee your well-being, that your intrinsic kindness urgently requires a metaphorical sword and shield for self-preservation, everything in your life will begin to irrevocably change. You don't morph into a bitter and jaded individual. You actively evolve into a complete and fully realized person. Someone who gives freely and generously because they genuinely want to, not because they are perpetually driven by an underlying fear of abandonment. Someone who loves deeply and passionately, but staunchly refuses to tolerate being manipulated or exploited. Someone who readily forgives genuine remorse, but steadfastly refuses to forget the lessons learned from past transgressions. Someone who intuitively knows how to gracefully withdraw at the precise moment when their boundaries are being violated and who, as a direct result, is never underestimated again. And now I sincerely want to hear from you. In which specific area of your life do you currently feel the most pressing need to start proactively asserting yourself? Whether in your professional endeavors, within your familial dynamics, or in your intimate relationships. Please share your candid thoughts in the comments section below. Your insightful answer can serve as a powerful catalyst for others to reflect upon their own experiences and embark on their own journeys of personal empowerment. Meaningful change invariably begins when we openly acknowledge the areas in which we are currently operating from a position of perceived weakness. And if this message has deeply resonated with you, if any part of this discourse has landed with the force of a genuine epiphany, then you absolutely must continue this transformative journey. The next installment is every bit as critical and impactful as this one. Don't skip it. Don't procrastinate or postpone it. because merely understanding the theoretical psychology of respect is only the initial step. The true and enduring journey has only just begun. Please, keep going. So let's bring it all together. Ultimately, this wasn't about advocating for becoming someone cold or ruthless. It was about understanding a fundamental truth. Your inherent kindness, your desire to be good, is an incredible strength, but it needs to be paired with a shield. That shield is your ability to set firm boundaries, to command respect, not through fear-mongering, but through unwavering self-respect and clear communication. It's about creating a presence that says, I value myself, and therefore I expect to be valued. This message helps provide cognitive clarity and assists with trauma recovery science. I genuinely hope this has resonated with you and perhaps even sparked a new way of thinking about your interactions and relationships. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. What are your biggest takeaways? What questions do you have? Or perhaps, what specific challenges are you facing when it comes to setting boundaries and commanding respect in your life? Don't hesitate to share your experiences or questions in the comments below. Let's build a supportive and insightful conversation together. And if you found this video valuable and are interested in more content about developing high-performance habits, emotional intelligence, and mind reprogramming, remember to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. We'll continue exploring ways to optimize our lives from the inside out.